Good morning to all of you. Nice to have you with us. This is Bhaskar from BKBB, an acronym for Bhaskar Ki Business Baatein. And this is a channel that brings to you every week policy analysis, conversations, and even occasional business stories. But right now at 8:15 in the morning, we have news behind the news. Nice to have you watching this program. And yes, my co-anchors today are Husaina, welcome Husaina, Aparna, and Janavi. Welcome all of you. It's good to have you with us. And together, the three of them are going to discuss the following titles, which are there on your screen. The first story is about SEBI. If you thought of bank defaulters, there are SEBI defaulters as well. People have not paid SEBI the money they owe. The second one is about basically about how the government has cleared 4 more projects of semiconductors, even while there's a big controversy about the first lot of semiconductor units. And the third one is a very interesting one on wealth makers in India. And let's go to the stories first. And let's take the first story about SEBI. Husaina, could we have you?
Yes, sir. Today's story is from the Security and Exchange Board of India's newest annual report for fiscal year 2024 and 2025. Now, SEBI has designated approximately rupees 77,800 crore as something which is called as difficult to recover or DTR dues. Essentially, what it means is that these amounts remain unpaid despite exhausting all available recovery efforts. As of March 31st, 2025, SEBI had 7,723 recovery certificates with around 4,335 still pending. Of these, 899 were flagged as DTR, amounting to rupees 77,000 crores. And the largest chunk, which is over rupees 61,000 crore, pertains to a case which is still stuck in court-appointed committees. Another rupees 12,000 crore is tied up in proceedings across state PID courts, the NCLT, NCLAT, and even the Supreme Court. However, sir, I think it's important to note that even though SEBI has categorized certain dues as difficult to recover, it does not necessarily mean that it has given up. They can still pursue these amounts if legal conditions allow. And I think the scale of this issue reflects both procedural complexities and the regulators' challenges in recouping funds, even with robust enforcement tools at hand. So, in response, SEBI emphasized reforms in several areas. So, there's a switch to B role of regulators, and Tuhin Pandey, who is also SEBI's chairman, he reaffirmed its direction towards regulatory simplification, easing FPI norms, bolstering investor awareness, and cyber fraud education, etc. In fact, inspection activities saw a sharp jump. Stockbroker inspections more than doubled, rising from 312 to 146 in the prior year. So inspections of investment advisors surged to 207 and those of research analysts to 149. So these steps does illustrate a two-pronged approach by SEBI. One is tightening enforcement while alleviating regulatory burdens that might otherwise hinder compliance and recovery. So yes, sir, this is the story. But the big question that lingers is, can India's markets ever be truly clean if recovery remains this difficult? What do you think?
You're right. You're right, Husaina. In India, almost in every place, there is a recovery problem, whether it's taxes or it's bank loans or it's even dues to the SEBI. And much of it is because of very poor laws, very poor scrutiny, and very poor follow-up. Even the case of ED, we saw that less than 2% of the cases reach conviction stage. So why file the cases at all? Is it harassment? In SEBI's case also, as the chairman himself admits now, a lot of problem lies because of very poorly drafted regulations. When you have officers in charge of building cases, not being articulate enough, not being clear enough, and not being very, very, very knowledgeable about the rules, you're going to have this problem. And almost every one of them, they end up in disputes, and disputes clog up the courts, whether these are SEBI courts, appellate courts, tax courts, or the regular courts, the high courts and the Supreme Court. It all comes back to the regulators themselves arming themselves with better knowledge and simplified rules. Thank you very much, Hussaina, for pointing out a glaring problem with India. And that takes us to the second story, which is Aparna's story. Aparna, could be happy.
Yes, sir. So the story is the Union Cabinet has just given the go-ahead for 4 new semiconductor manufacturing projects. So these are coming in two in Odisha, one in Andhra Pradesh, and one in Punjab. Together, these projects means rupees 4,600 crores in investment and over 2,000 direct jobs, and as a lot more in indirectly also. Now, Odisha is getting something really special. India's very first commercial compound semiconductor fab. That's by Sixm and a UK partner, Classic Wafer Fab. These chips aren't your everyday ones. They are silicon carbide devices and kind you will find in EVs, missiles, fast chargers, solar inverters, and etc. And Odisha's second project, 3D glass solutions. They are bringing in advanced packaging technology used in defense, AI, high performance computing, etc. Over in Andhra Pradesh, ASIP Technologies with a South Korean partner will make chips for mobile set-top boxes and cars. Meanwhile, Punjab CDIL is expanding its Mohali plant to produce high-power devices. Think MOSFETs, IGBTs, the stuffs that powers EVs, renewable energy, and telecom systems. With these approvals, India now has 10 semiconductor projects worth a massive of rupees 1.6 trillion spread across 6 states. And while chips are getting all the buzz, there's movement on the ground too, literally. Lucknow's metro's Phase 1B just got the green light. It's a 11-kilometer stretch, 12 stations, 7 underground, 5 elevated, connecting Ahmedabad Chowk, King George Medical University, and some heritage sites. What does that mean for commuters? Less traffic, faster travel, cleaner air, and better links to jobs, hospitals, schools. And the tourist, you will have a smoother ride too. So the two big moves are one for India's tech future and one for everyday travels. So, sir, this is my story. What do you think about it?
My only question about, and this is something which the government will have to consider very seriously, is that you are going for manufacturing semiconductors. The initial ones had a huge PLI benefit from the government. I do not know whether the later ones, the 4 projects that have been cleared, also enjoy PLI benefits. They come up. By the time they come up, the semiconductors that they produce will not be the most capable, the most efficient, and the most desired. So these become white elephants. We build the project where the semiconductors are those which are older generation, displaced by new tech chips. There's another problem. In India, capital costs and capital intensive projects are always more expensive because of customs delays, bank delays, labor delays, implementation delays. As a result, the semiconductors India will produce will be more expensive than the semiconductors that are available from overseas. So India ends up either putting import duties to protect the domestic industry and thus becomes an even more expensive economy and uncompetitive, or else these projects remain white elephants. I do not know whether the government's done a white paper on this before clearing such projects. Anyway, that's already been cleared. Entrepreneurs are willing. Let's see how things go along. And that takes us to the third story, and the third story is by Janvi.
So, India's wealthiest business families are getting even wealthier, and their influence is shaping almost every element of the economy. According to the 2025 clients Hurun India Most Valuable Family Businesses list, the top 300 business families together generate a staggering 7,100 crore INR, in value every single day. And their combined wealth is 134 trillion INR, which is more than the GDP of Turkey and Finland put together. So at number one is Mukesh Ambani's Reliance Industries, valued at 28.23 trillion, which is nearly 1/12 of India's total GDP. And then comes your Birla family at 6.48 trillion, followed by the Jindal family of JSW Steel at 5.71. The Adani family is at the top among the first generation family businesses, with Adani enterprises worth 14 trillion INR. In fact, the first generation businesses like Adani's and Poonawala's Serum Institute together hold massive clout in emerging sectors. And Mumbai remains the business capital, holding headquarters of 91 of these top firms, followed by NCR, Kolkata, Pune, and then Chennai. Now, it's not just about wealth. These businesses employ over 2 million people and pay 1.8 trillion rupees in taxes, making up for 15% of India's corporate tax revenue. But 120 of these businesses, including Merrill and Bharat Forge, face the threat of losing billions in export revenue over the next few years amid Trump's tariffs. In short, India's business dynasties aren't just growing in value, but they're getting a stronger than ever hold over the economy. And as their fortunes rise, so does their hold over jobs, markets, and even the nation's tax coffers. But while these figures highlight the extraordinary scale and efficiency of India's leading businesses, they also show a very deep rooted structural imbalance where a handful of corporate stalwarts they hold a disproportionate share of wealth, and the remaining vast majority of the population contributes to only a fraction of the GDP. So, what's your thought on this, sir?
Well, it's heartening that these industrialists are doing very well for themselves and have become larger and larger. But underlying that simple truth of growing large is India's inability to generate wealth at the bottom and reduce the disparity between the rich and the poor. You need more entrepreneurs coming up. But being an entrepreneur in India is very difficult because once you cross the 1 crore, 2 crore mark, compliances kick in and compliances can kill any investor. Which is why China produces more millionaires than India does. India's millionaires are big, but India does not produce enough millionaires. It should be producing many, many more and promote even entrepreneurship at the bottom. What is heartening though is players like the Adanis, the Poonawalas, and Divi from Divi Laboratories, who are doing a marvelous job in creating greenfield projects in new enterprises, new areas that the older industrialists have not always looked at. India is vibrant, but could be a lot more vibrant. Thanks a lot for the story. Very interesting story. And that takes me to the next part. But before I go to the next part of addressing comments and questions, could I remind everyone to please click the subscribe button if you're not a subscriber already. And yes, click the like button. It helps us immensely. But most of all, please tell your friends about us. It helps us grow faster. And that takes me to the questions that have come in. And the first question is, which companies are involved in semiconductor projects? Well, the Tatas are the biggest players in the semiconductor because they even took on the Foxconn units. The Tatas are the few players in this country that are integrated with the semiconductors because Apple, most of them go into the Apple phones. But will all go into Apple phones? I don't know. Let's see. But the most interesting project to watch is the one that was set up in Gujarat, where the promoter put in only 10%, 90% was put in by the government as doles and grants to attract this player. Will this become viable, or will this be another government expenditure where the promoter puts in nothing and may not even let the industry grow as big as it wants? And that takes us to the next question. Should the government have a separate ministry for semiconductor and AI? Well, you can have a separate ministry or can't have a separate ministry. What is important is the ability to let the government drive industry less and let entrepreneurship take over. Semiconductors are growing because the government has made it a trust area. The government's providing incentives. But will these incentives pay off? Have you looked at the semiconductor market hard enough without being sentimental about it? Will it make India competitive, or will we become a high-cost economy, putting tariffs to protect the industries? Questions that the government has not addressed. And that takes us to the next question, which is on SEBI. Shouldn't SEBI haul up the people, the promoters, the people who have not paid the money, the investors who have not paid SEBI the money, and file cases against them? SEBI has filed cases. They're all stuck in courts. And they're stuck in courts because, one, courts do not move very quickly, and two, because SEBI's own laws are drafted so poorly that they allow the lawyers to nitpick on every issue that SEBI has drafted as its laws. There are many issues involved, but SEBI also is to blame. And that takes us to the third question, which is about the wealthy. What should India's policy towards generation of wealth be? The answer is very simple. The government should make wealth generation easy. It should be more investor friendly. It should use less of the police and the enforcement directorate against promoters. And most of all, it should try to see that it does not direct companies to do whatever they want to do, but let entrepreneurship blossom. Making entrepreneurship blossom is something the government has failed miserably in. Its compliances are too many. Ease the compliances. Let promoters of companies be at ease, where manufacturing, setting up companies, even closing companies becomes easier. Be vigilant. Let the banks be strict. But allow companies to close down instead of letting them make more losses. There are so many things a country can do. India has the entrepreneurship, but India lacks a sympathetic, conducive environment for this entrepreneurship. And that, in a way, takes me to the last part of this session, and that is thanking all of you for joining in and being with us. I look forward to seeing you once again tomorrow, because we love sharing the information with you. Take care, have a wonderful day ahead, and see you tomorrow.